Hello, Fearless Schools podcast audience. I hope everyone is having a wonderful day, week, month, season, year, whenever you are and wherever you are. It's your humble host, Dr. Drew Tomlin, here with you, bringing some questions, some queries, and more, and almost 30 plus years experience in the classroom and schoolhouse to the table. And I'm so glad you're pulling up a chair and tucking that napkin in because we have another savory meal to satisfy your cognitive and pedagogical appetite today. And before we get to today's guest, I'm always happy to have also at the table the one and the only Director of Professional Learning for the Creative Leadership Solutions crew. It's Dr. Ann McCarty. Dr. Ann, what's happening?
Drew, you said a meal. I'm in. This one's going to be a delight, like 17-course meal.
Yes,
this
exactly.
Guest, he's bringing it all. And then add dessert while you're at it.
Oh, why not? 2 forks.
She's sweet.
Yes. There you go. Got a couple of forks and a knife, maybe a couple of spoons. Who knows? Oh my gosh. Well, thank you, Dr. Ann. As aforementioned, always glad that you're here on the podcast. And today's podcast makes me think about a good meal. Actually, no, I'm going to stop. It actually makes me remember and think about a great meal. Because, a good meal is nice, right? You serve it up, people eat it, they enjoy it, and they say, gosh, that was good stuff. But this podcast is more like a great meal. Because a great meal is something that people come back for, right? They come back to it because it not just made them less hungry, it actually made them hungry for more of that great stuff. So guess who's back to bring us another great meal? Guess who's back for another round with the Fearless Schools podcast? Well, here we go. This person is an educational leader and best-selling author who spent 19 years of her career as an award-winning principal, serving all levels K through 12, right? And for the past few years, she's traveled the country as a keynote speaker and leadership and collaboration coach, a prolific writer on her blog entitled Serendipity in Education. She's written lots of books, and there's more to come. We'll get into the numbers in a little bit. She's currently the Director of Client Relations with CLS, makes all awesome things happen in that whole universe, and she's an all-around nice person as well. That's right, it's Allyson Apsey. How's it going, Allyson?
Hi, wow, what an introduction. And I'm very hungry now. I haven't eaten yet.
Listen, we appreciate you being here. And again, our appetite is just, we're ready for it. We're ready for Allyson Apsey to bring the real that you always do. So thanks for coming to the program. All right.
Thank you for having me.
Since we're talking food, we're going to keep that theme going to get us started. We've asked you on a previous podcast, because again, this is like Return of the Jedi. This is like Return of the Apsey, right? We asked you before about a food, and I think it was in the seafood area, right? So your go-to food in times of educational challenge or triumph. Any changes there? Or are we still going seafood? What you got?
I don't know. Maybe I'm going to go French fries today.
Oh, that's always a good choice.
Okay, so that begs.
Ketchup.
Okay, so the condiment is obviously a great question. Thanks for getting ahead of that one. So ketchup is the one. Now, do you have a specific kind of French fry? Are you like a waffle fry versus a crinkle fry versus a curdly one? Like, how does your freak flag French fry?
I know, right? So my favorite French fries are from this place called Mr. Burger, which there's a few of them in my hometown of Grand Rapids, Michigan. And when they bake them or they cook them, fry them, right? Just right, where they're well done enough that they're a little bit like on the brown side, a little bit crispy, but not too crunchy, like baked to or fried to perfection. That's what I like. And they're like thicker fries, but not steak fries. Those are too thick.
Got you. And podcast listeners, you can't see this obviously because this is obviously a podcast. But as Allyson was describing this French fry experience, there was a joyous like nostalgia and whimsical. I mean, it was just like going down memory lane. I love that.
She was detailing it with her hand gestures and everything.
Yes.
So, I could visualize it as she was describing it. Right. I have a really important question though, Allyson.
Go for it.
As a French fry connoisseur, it sounds. Are sweet potato fries real French fries?
That's a dangerous question. Go for
it. For me, because I dip them in ketchup, yes.
Okay.
But if you dip them in something sweet, I'm not sure what my answer would be to that.
Oh my gosh. This goes right along with our whole educational podcast, right? Because it's about how we put the different ingredients and options together to differentiate and tailor what we need to do for the students and this and the teachers and the leaders that we serve, right? That's
Hmm.
where I'm going to take it. Okay.
Beautiful.
Mhm.
Oh my gosh, we just do such wonderful things on this podcast. It's undeniable. All right, so we know your food preferences. One thing that we have not talked about is young Allyson Apsey, in the sense of, not saying that you're old, what kind of a student were you, and your origin story. What kind of a student were you, and perhaps who or what kind of strategies kind of got you going as a student?
Yeah, yeah. So I would say I was like a reluctant student
Mm.
and maybe a bored and disengaged and a bit undercover rebellious student.
Oh.
I graduated from high school and probably has heard this, but I graduated from high school saying, I don't know what I want to be, but
Mhm.
I know I don't want to be a teacher because I really never want to step foot in a K-12 building again because that was excruciating.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. So then, full stop. Full stop on that. Okay. I like a good declarative sentence, and we appreciate that.
And here we are. You do
and
it every
and
day.
and here we are, end of show. No, so yeah, so there you go. So I mean, and that's interesting because I have seen that a lot of people who decide to become teachers are either inspired by a previous teacher that they had, like, oh, this is the model I want to live by, and go into classes and change lives. And then on the other side, it sounds like this is maybe your experience, like, you know what, like, this has been such a, I was bored, I was reluctant, such a negative experience, that maybe I want to go into education to change things. Maybe I'm,
Yeah.
yeah. What was the thing then? So as a student, what got you to get to school every day then?
My parents like threatening like Polish Catholic guilt, I think, is what got me to school every day.
Okay, so the
Yeah.
importance of family engagement. We appreciate that.
There you
Right.
go.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
But to that point, like I didn't know when I was in grade school, middle school, high school, that my two core values are integrity and making a difference. Like
Hmm.
I didn't know that growing up, but I do know that now.
Okay.
And I think that core value of making a difference is what led me into education and becoming an educator. Because just like you said, like when I see a need, I feel like I need to be the change in the world, right? Like,
Hmm.
Gandhi has taught us. And
Yeah.
I I had to volunteer in a classroom for an educational psychology class that I was taking, and I was the only person in there who didn't want to be a teacher. But I had to do the volunteer work anyway, and I went into my aunt's first grade classroom, and I looked at those like sweet little face. I can picture one of those faces. I was 18 years old or 19 years old in that classroom, and I just looked at those kids, and I'm like, oh my gosh, you poor things! You have 12 years of torture ahead of you. Like you have no idea what you're in for.
Oh my gosh, I love the honesty. Like, there's candor, and this is, and then there's this. So I got to ask though. So let's take this, because you said, like, you didn't really know yourself, right, when you were in
Yeah.
school. It was later that you figured out that, like, you want to make a difference, and it's about integrity and being the change. Do you think that schools should do more about helping students understand who they are versus content areas that need to be reinforced? Does that
Mm.
make sense?
Yeah, and I'm going to relate this to actually a classroom I walked into in Central California
Hmm.
a couple weeks ago. I think it was a fourth grade classroom, and they were doing one of those like career analyzation tests to identify what careers they might be
Yeah.
interested in. And I think those are valuable. It's interesting because one of my memories is when I taught seventh and eighth grade, and I had my students do this career matchmaker thing. And
Yeah.
one of my students is like, Mrs. Apsey, it just told me I'm going to be a funeral director. Like that is not what I want to. That is, I think she's actually a teacher now, but it was just a kind of a joke. But I
Yeah.
wonder, as you said that, Drew, if we might be better off spending time helping our students think about who they want to be,
Hmm.
and then
Mm-hmm.
what career pathways or different occupations or professions might align with who they want to be.
Right. Right. More based on their character traits, like you would a character in a story, versus just like, here's here's some careers and things that, yeah, because I mean, mine, I remember taking mine in Lynn Haven Junior High School, shout out Bluefish in Virginia Beach. It said that I was either going to be a plumber or a priest. And I didn't know how those were even related, but somehow I was like, oh, okay, I don't know. But I always wondered, like, what does that say about me? So,
Right.
I think you're right. That doesn't necessarily discount the value of those career tests necessarily, but like, how can we use that information to help kids understand about themselves more than just here's a trade that you
Right.
can pursue? Yeah, that's interesting.
Right.
All right.
Yeah.
Well,
I didn't get to take one of those
mm,
in junior high, but my funniest response from a student was he was very upset that game show host didn't come up as one of his.
I can understand that. I would be
yep.
upset too.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I always wanted Jedi Knight to be on those, but it never was. Like, come on, give me a
And look
real
at you
choice.
now. I mean, come on. Yeah.
Look at me
So
now.
so Allison, when did it change? What talk to us about when you had this and you saw those kids and you're like, oh my gosh, you're in for 12 years. That's I feel bad for you. Like
Right.
when did it flip for you, or when did the light come on, or whatever the saying is that you want to put to it that put you into education, because you're such a gift to education. So when
That's
did
true.
what happened? Where did that start?
Well, thank you for saying that. But I think it was pretty much like it was like days after I looked at those like sweet little snotty nose faces in that first grade classroom where I'm like, wait a minute, Allison, you thought you wanted to be a social worker. And then like, I didn't understand all the different jobs social workers could do. And the one social worker I interviewed did not make a lot of money or make enough money that I felt like it was a livable wage. So then I'm like, okay, scratch that. Now I'm just going to go into business because I don't know what else to do. But after I had that volunteer experience, it only took a few days for me to be like, wait a minute, you wanted to help people. You're not sure about this business world if it's going to be fulfilling for you. And look at this opportunity. Like you can become a teacher, and those kids can at least have 1 year where they feel like they're seen, that their gifts are acknowledged, that they're challenged in just the right way that they want to be challenged, that you create this environment where they want to come every day.
And obviously, like Ann said, like, now look at what you get to do, and look what you have done as a teacher and a principal, and all that kind of stuff. So I mean, it comes down, like, the question I have now is, well, then how did those early experiences as a student help you once you got into the schoolhouse? So as an educational leader, you're a principal, you're a teacher, you're making those changes. Did you reflect back on your own student experiences and say, all right, how can I make this less onerous and horrible?
Right. Yes. I mean,
Did you think about that?
Yeah, and I mean, I recognize I had some responsibility in how I went through school K-12, but I absolutely thought about that because I just always felt like either I was being taught stuff that I already knew, or I was kind of placed into maybe a group or a category where I didn't belong. I was an avid reader. I went through Daniel Steele books at too young of an age, like nobody's business. And I learned all about the Russian Revolution through Daniel Steele's book Zoya. And
Nice.
I didn't have to study in my college history class when we were learning about the Russian Revolution because I knew it all already from
Right.
a book I had read in 7th grade. So it wasn't like I was resistant to learning. I just wanted to be engaged cognitively and excited about learning. And it's so interesting because as I do this work and travel around the country, and I know that you both know this work, I get to work with a lot of teachers who get exceptional results. And when I talk to those teachers, like, what are you doing to get these results? They're like, they're humble, and they say, well, I just do what everybody else does. Well, no, you don't, because you're getting different results than everybody else. So what are you actually doing? And when we break it down, one of the components that is always present in these classrooms where students are incredibly successful and defy odds around them is relationships. But it's not just like, you're my buddy. Like
Yeah.
we get along really well. Like you think I'm funny, I think you're funny. I was talking with a teacher last year, one of these teachers who gets exceptional results, and she's like, I build relationships, but we're not best friends.
Right.
And so like we dove into that a little bit and talked about what that means to her. And we came up with, I don't know if we made this up or whatever, but we came up with this term that really fit what she was talking about. And it is relational teaching. It's really
Oh,
building relationships and connecting students to the learning and to the content, not having this like, okay, we're going to build relationships over here, then we're going to get down to business over here. It's really weaving the two together. And I think that's what I felt like was missing.
yeah.
And I don't want to be your best friend, my teacher. Like, I'm not going to suck up to you to, have you like me. That's just not who I was as a student.
Right.
But I did want to connect to the learning and get excited about the learning. So that was the teacher I wanted to be.
Yeah. No, that's super cool. It goes to, we recently had Dr. John Hattie on the podcast as well, and he said something that mirrors what you just said, right? So you said, what are you actually doing? Right. That's a key
Mm-hmm.
question for teachers to reflect on. And of course, he said famously, know thy impact.
Mm-hmm.
Right. So it's about knowing what you're doing and understanding the impact of what you're doing. And something as simple as a relationship can have either a positive impact or a negative impact, depending upon how you use that relationship. I think that's really
Absolutely.
super cool. And I think you being an avid reader, because I know I've known some avid readers too, that through reading, you understand that there are universal themes that
Mm-hmm.
come across in literature all the time. And so I think being a good educator is a lot like that kind of reading. Like you can
Yeah.
see the different connections, read a situation, read a lesson, read a kid, and make those connections. So do you see that? Do you think like being a reader helped you be a good educator?
Yeah, it was interesting because actually I had a conversation with Dr. Reeves when we were driving somewhere around California or something one time where we were just talking about what we are currently reading, and I'm
Mm-hmm.
always reading a novel, like a fiction
Yeah.
novel, historical fiction, maybe even like a biography or an autobiography, and then a professional book. And he said that he doesn't read fiction or narratives. He's always reading professional books, and he talked
Hmm.
about the research around the development of emotional intelligence with reading fiction books, because it is understanding. It's because we're learning, we're processing way different in our brains when we're reading versus watching like a Netflix series or binging a series.
Mm-hmm.
And he was saying, it was cute. He's like, well, maybe I, should increase my emotional intelligence by reading some fiction. And I'm not sure if he's done that or not, but yeah, absolutely. I think that reading and understanding the interactions, like getting into
Yes.
characters'
Yeah.
brains, really
Yeah.
helps us understand people better.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think if we want to emphasize SEL and help with empathy and things like that, that sometimes just a good story where there's a character with a character arc where they learn something can have a lot of value to it. And like back to that relational teaching, maybe that's what we need to do. Yes, nonfiction
Mm.
reading and writing has its importance in terms of academic growth, but maybe SEL growth is achieved through fiction reading. Who knows? Goodness gracious. Um,
Wow. Yeah.
God, look what we did. All right. So,
I
in
know.
fact, speaking of keywords and context and stuff like that, the word serendipity is something that is big into your work. So, do you mind? Because I'm not that bright. Could you define serendipity in the how it exists in the arena of education and why it sings to you so much?
Yeah. So I fell in love with the idea of serendipity when I watched the movie that came out in 2001 called Serendipity, starring John
Oh,
Cusack and Kate Beckinsale. And I was
nice.
teaching seventh and eighth grade at the time. And we called SEL character education back then in the Stone Ages when I was teaching. And I got to teach my seventh and eighth graders a character education class. Like I was going to have
Okay.
them like every day for a character education lesson. It was like this beautiful gift. I was so excited,
Right.
but I knew that if I called it character education, they would roll their eyes as they were walking into the classroom. So I
Mm-hmm.
tricked them and I called it serendipity. So I
Nice.
just I just liked the word. I loved the movie, and But it was in that class with those 7th and 8th graders that we like kind of dove in to the idea of serendipity a little bit more, and embraced it as kind of a mindset. So serendipity means, I ask adults this, what it means all the time. And so many adults, well, I would say 99% of the adults I ask do not know what it means. And it just, it simply means, I'm not saying that. Okay. No, I just want anybody who doesn't know what it means, who's listening, to not feel bad. So it means happy accidents. Like it's something we happen upon that has a positive impact on us. So I use the story with students of like, okay, let's say you're going to the movies and you go to buy your ticket and you're so excited about this movie that just came out that you want to see, and the movie's sold out. So then you're like, oh, okay, I guess I'll see, this other movie that I wasn't planning on seeing, but whatever. I want the popcorn. I'm going in. I'm going to watch the movie. And it ends up being the best movie you have ever seen in your entire life. That's serendipity. That's a happy accident, right?
Makes sense.
We think about accidents in terms of unhappy accidents all the time. So the mindset is, what if we like went through life looking for beautiful lessons and happy accidents in everything we experience, from like joys beyond our imagination. Like that, the day that I got the email that's from DBC, Dave Burgess Consulting, Shelley Burgess emailed me and said, hey, we want to publish The Path to Serendipity. That was like, I'd never even imagined anybody would want to publish something that I'm writing other than me on my blog. Like that was a joy beyond my imagination. And then like sorrows, our deepest sorrows and everything in between. What if all of those experiences offer us beautiful lessons and gifts if we look for them? And
absolutely.
But the key is that we have to look for them. And the other key is that in the moment, like sometimes our deepest sorrows or bad things that happen to us, we're not like, I'm not skipping through life thinking, what happy lesson am I going to learn from this really terrible thing that's going on? Like we have to sit in those feelings. We have to feel what we feel those bad feelings. But this serendipity mindset is just having this spark of hope inside of us that this experience, we just know it will make us a better version of ourselves if we allow it to.
Yeah, that's beautiful. That really is a totally different way of just walking through life, right? And so gosh, I could say I try to aspire to that, but I've never had a name for it. So thank you for letting me join your class, your serendipity class.
Allyson, I think you just blew Drew's hair back.
Yeah, and I don't even have that much to blow back. There you go. So when you work with school leaders, right, do you talk to them about serendipity and how it can help them through their instructional day? You know what I'm saying? Like, how does it help or manifest itself at the schoolhouse on the day-to-day? How does that work?
Yes. So like when I don't know that, like, today I did a day of PLC coaching and we didn't talk about serendipity during, today, but when I'm keynoting or we have a day of PD or I'm presenting, I always share about like serendipity mindset. And the reason I do it is because it's insight to who I am. And I like, that's so important. The people who are sitting in a workshop I'm hosting or a keynote speech or something, they don't need to know like how many years I've been in education or like all of my degrees. What they need to know is who I am and what my heart is. And that is insight into me. But the other reason I share it is because so often I have people come up to me and it's like, Allyson, everything that you said resonated with me, or I took away these ideas. But the thing that's going to stick with me the most is when you talked about serendipity. And here's what I'm going through in my life. And here's how I'm going to apply that idea. So we never know what we share, like how it's going to hit people that we're working with. And so that's why it's so important for me to share that every chance I get.
Yeah, and I think it actually goes back to, and listener, I know you know about Allyson Apsey, podcast edition number 1. But we talked about psychological safety and the importance of vulnerability. So that goes right along with that message too, because if we just talk about checklists and how to be successful as leaders through the logistics and stuff like that, but we never get to the heart of who we are, then we never touch upon those more important things about, like you said, psychological safety and vulnerability, and goodness gracious. And I feel a question coming.
No, it's just more of it's an authenticity, right? Allison, you lead and you look at people through who they are, not what they are, or even like you said, your years or your degrees.
Right.
It's more of just who am I and who are you going to spend the day with or whatever
Yeah.
time it is.
Absolutely.
It's very authentic.
So, we talked about, in some ways, serendipity and the work that you've done there is kind of a superpower, right? Like it's the way that you see the world. It's kind of like a superpower you have, the lens that you're helping others see too. So I've got to ask the other side of it, right? What's your kryptonite? What's something that challenges you, not to a debilitating standpoint, but just is like, this gets me as a superhero. And how do you work through it?
So, okay, just a little bit of context.
Yes.
And this ties to serendipity in that, okay, so we talk about collective efficacy all the time. And that is the crux of so much of my work and the work I do alongside Anne. I'm sure you talked about it with John Hattie. It's thrown out there all over, right? But what is it? What is collective efficacy? And we defined it on the podcast with John Hattie, but also what does that look like in practice? So that's something I support educators in developing on a daily basis. But before you have collective, I don't know, chicken or egg, but before you have collective efficacy, do you have to have self-efficacy? And self-efficacy is the belief that I can take action today that will result in a positive outcome.
Yep.
And another word for self-efficacy to me is hope. And that's what that serendipity mindset, like that little flame that you have inside, that this experience, even though it hurts so bad right now, I can become a better version of myself through these lessons I'm learning, through the gifts this experience is going to provide. That's that little flame of hope. And hope, I get to work with educators all over, which is such a gift. And I ask, what does hope mean? And I was working with a group of mentors in Colorado, and I had a mentor say, hope is wishing. And, I didn't want to embarrass him, but I didn't embarrass him. But hope is not wishing. Hope is not making a wish. Hope is knowing that you can make a change that's going to result in a positive outcome. So collective efficacy is collective hope.
Gotcha.
It's knowing that together we can make a change that's going to result in a positive outcome. And so I bring this up when you ask about my kryptonite, because one of the things I really struggle with is when I'm sitting at the table with a group of educators and I see some educators either disengaging with collective efficacy and our efforts to develop that, or I see some educators excluded from the work that we're doing collaboratively, or I see some educators maybe misunderstood or letting fear get in the way. And I want to stop everything and I want to address it right then. And we don't have time always to do all of that. But I'd say that is my kryptonite, because I know in order to develop collective efficacy, we have to develop a team. And in order to develop a team, everybody on the team needs to be valued equally. And when I see that not happening and I don't have the time or the opportunity to change it, I'd say that's my kryptonite.
Yeah. That's tough. That's tough in any building where you are the full-time administrator or leader in the building, or you're, traveling around and supporting leaders in other schools. Yeah, I see it too. Because I agree with you 100%. I think you can't have collective efficacy without first addressing self-efficacy. Collective efficacy is your belief in others. Self-efficacy, do you trust that the person beside you is going to be working towards the same goal with the same energy and the same belief as you do?
Yes.
And if you don't, then how do you get through that? How do you work through that? Because that's the mystery, right?
Right. And so often we just accept that it's not going to happen. But if we really want to, tap into the 1.32 effect size of collective efficacy, we have to push back past that. We cannot accept anything less than us seeing each other's strengths and embracing each other's strengths and keeping the ball rolling for the benefit of our students.
Right. Exactly. Yeah. I mean, going back to that hope, right? I mean, I always go back to Emily Dickinson said that hope is the thing with feathers that perches in the soul. Right. And so I always think like, yeah, that little bird is there, inside and just waiting for us to let it fly. Right. And so collective efficacy, collective hope is, gosh, that's a big bird. That's a big bird. And you got to have a lot of newspaper around for whatever it's going to, sorry, but you got it. That's a big bird. So like everybody's little bird, of course, their individual bird soars aloft or stays perched. But then how do you get everybody to fly towards the same goal and same direction with the same amount of lift? Oh, boy, look what you did, Allyson Apsey.
That big bird is not caged, though, Drew, so you won't need newspaper.
You know what? You're exactly
Set
right.
it free.
Right.
Set
Or
it
do
free,
we
right?
build the cages ourselves?
Oh. Yes, we do.
Oh, man. All right. Well, listen, Allyson Apsey, any other big mic drop moment words for our listening audience here on the Fearless Schools podcast?
I mean, how do I follow up Big Bird? But okay, one thing, I just want to make one more connection.
Yeah,
it's going
absolutely.
to connect what we talked about with fiction.
I have a question, too.
Oh,
Okay,
and then,
fiction, reading, and serendipity, and SEL. Because I actually wrote it's not well known because it came out during COVID, but I actually wrote a middle grades realistic fiction chapter book that teaches the concepts of William Glasser's choice theory. So, which is SEL. It's teaching about self-awareness. It's teaching about how to meet our own needs without interfering with the needs of others, and how to create relationships and environments that can be need satisfying. But SEL research has shown us is best learned through discovery. And I think that is why it's like I just made this connection, why it's always been so important to me to write fiction and these compelling stories that students can get just really into, and then learn these SEL skills through that discovery, through the reading, through the character's eyes, and thinking about the character's actions and next moves. And so you just helped me connect some dots there that I just wanted to share. It's called the Serendipity Journal, and by middle grades I mean it's like grades 4, 5, and 6.
Right. Oh my gosh. And I wonder, going all the way back to your origin story, that this hunger to make things more relevant and more engaging comes from your own experience of that you never really had that your own reluctance and boredom and stuff like that is because the manacles or shackles of the educational system, if you will, like kind of kept you kind of pinned down. And that makes me sad, but also hopeful.
Oh.
That makes me happy that
time.
Yeah, you had.
I had a good time, Drew.
Yeah. All right.
We won't talk about that part of life.
She made her own fun.
All right, Dr. Ann, go ahead with your question. What you got?
So, last question, Allyson, because you're everywhere, and doing all the things. Talk to us about your favorite strategy right now, whether it's a leadership strategy or it's a strategy for teachers. Our listeners love to hear things that they can take away and do immediately.
That's true.
Give us one or two. If you're like, I can't choose between a teaching and a leadership strategy, then give us one of each. But what's a
Oh my goodness. Wow. And like my mind is like racing through so many. But so I wrote a book called Lead with Collaboration, and it's about transforming staff meetings to use them for the superpower they can be rather than as something to dread. And in there, we talk about icebreakers, like to break the ice or not to break the ice. That is the question. And most teachers would be like, no, thank you. Please don't break the ice. And sometimes like the ice is already broken. We don't need an icebreaker. But what we do need is some kind of inclusion activity. And that whole idea of he or she who is doing the talking is doing the thinking. And how can we engage teachers, students, like from the minute they walk in the classroom in the learning that we're hoping we accomplish? And so inclusion activities really kind of set the foundation for that, from simple ones like, putting up 3 quotes that are relevant to the learning for the day, and having the educators read the quotes and choose one that they most relate to at that time, in that time and space, and why, and share that with each other. To big ones where we have these cards with pictures on them, and people are walking around the room, they're picking a card that matches their perception of PLCs or whatever the topic is for the day. But just a way to get everybody talking in the right direction right away.
That's a great strategy, and I appreciate you, and also that it comes from a book that someone can go get and say, hey, this is a great book, and then Allyson Apsey coming to my school and all that kind of good stuff. And it actually makes me think about the French fries too, because they got to be just an inclusion activity has to be just the right kind. Can't be too thick, like you mentioned earlier. Can't be right, exactly, and it's got to have just enough to hold that ketchup.
Yes. Yes.
Just enough to hold the ketchup.
All right, that's going into my next keynote, Drew. Thank you.
Awesome. All right, and hey, you know what? Shout out. Didn't know we were going to have Mr. Burger as a shout out, or the movie Serendipity. There you go. Awesome. Yes. Didn't have that on my bingo card for today.
Oh,
but hey, listen, Allyson, thank you so much, not only for sharing your time, but also sharing your amazing thoughts and ideas with us. We're just so grateful. And listen, our listeners had their paintbrushes ready at their canvases, and they were looking for your artful inspiration to help them create beautiful and bountiful works of educational art all their own. And you gave them that inspiration to do just that. So look at your Van Gogh go, if you will. So Fearless Schools listeners, you did it once again. You took time out of your listening lives to check out another Fearless Schools podcast brought to you by Creative Leadership Solutions. And you should be proud of yourselves. So go ahead, pat yourself on the back. Go to www.creativeleadership.net and subscribe to it. Share the podcast with anyone and everyone you know, peers, social media mavens, educational bon vivants, raconteurs, family pets, whoever, whenever. I'm Dr. Drew Tomlin, host of your Fearless Schools podcast, wishing you well and saying stay fearless on the bright road ahead. Thanks again, Allyson. Thank you once again, Dr. Ann, as well.
Thanks, Allyson.
Thank you both.